see if this is working. Calculate. Is this too big? It might actually be too big for course play. Alright, so this is the largest field in the game. It's right next to the dealer. In real life, this is a tri-county implement. Definitely no detail so far. So this Cascade Road is kind of the main artery. You go downtown, and this is they'll bring you down to the schools and the town. So this is 240th, I believe, and that's 9. Goes by a fish hatchery here. So if we bring up the map, you can kind of see where we're at here. You can see how expansive this area is and how tiny it is on the map, because this is a 16x map. I know there was people that wanted to do kind of a map tour in my last. The live stream is kind of video output low. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth streaming. Not really sure what's going on with the live stream encoder here. I think my eye action might be messed up. Anyways, to the right, there isn't really much up there. There's a couple fields and just a lot of trees, and then access. There's actually a boat landing up there, so you can gain access to the St. Croix River. But you can see there's just a lot of trees and a decent view at the river. Obviously you can't see much because of the trees. So this map is based off of real topography. The technique is called digital elevation mapping. You use the topography to set your terrain, and this terrain is scaled for feet, where the default is usually in meters, unit in GEs and meters. So put the cruise control back on, bump it down to like 57. Little creek, very woodsy in this part of the map. Got a different species of not just oak but pine. I believe this is actually called River Road. I don't have the road signs in yet. Barren fields. There's actually supposed to be houses on the left here. This was all housing development. This used to be fields for crop production, but it's all been kind of put into like wildlife reservation. And I believe kind of a landscaping company is there now. we come up to Cascade Road, if we were to take a left, that would bring us up to the Tri-County Implement, the John Deere dealer, as well as some other fields. We might get up there eventually, but we'll just putz through town here. So this is Cascade, this is North Cascade, and this brings us into the town of Osseo that isn't actually built yet. Some turning lanes. On the left is where the high schools are, the high school, middle school, and then elementary schools up on that hill. Track and field is here, some baseball fields, but right here is where the schools are gonna go eventually. Up there is kind of where that landscape place is. And then as we drive up, get into town, now we're getting into the town. This is where you'd start seeing some houses and apartments, and it goes up into the hills. Actually, I'll drive off up and into there so we can get a better view of some of the houses that are going up this area. So the roads are actually kind of funky the way they do it, but like I said, right here is where all the schools are. I believe it's like Education Drive is the road that goes up on the hill there. I'll give you a view of where we're on the map. Now we're kind of towards the middle of the map. So all of this is going to be houses. This is all residential. It's kind of a nice hill part. And then you can start seeing some... Ooh, stay on the road. Up here where the camera is looking is industrial park. That's where Polaris has manufacturing facilities. That's where they make, I believe they make the Polaris Ranger, as well as, I think they might make a snowmobile there too, or not. So pretty cool area in real life, actually. There's the train track right at the bottom of these hills here. And so if you were to go right, that would bring you downtown. If you were to follow this road brings you up to County Road M, kind of the back way. And there's train tracks that cross here, and this is a pretty cool area in real life. You're kind of in the middle of a gully here, a valley, crossing the train tracks. So you can't really tell, but if I zoom out here, you're kind of slightly going uphill, and you're just surrounded by these sides of these hills and a bunch of trees. So this is industrial park, still has a long ways to go. This is County Road M. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down M for a bit. You just see how massive this map is. It's so these are kind of newer developments, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Apartments, condos, duplexes kind of thing. And then beyond that is the airport. This is more flat, kind of a flat, boring part of the area. Over here is some fields, some I believe it's kind of water treatment, water plumbing, and I think this is actually supposed to be more of a transform station. Anyways, you can take a road down there. Actually, I should probably take a road. Up here would be a golf course. I'm not really sure how I'm going to make a golf course in this game. Whatever. Show you where we're on the map now. We're kind of making our way. I think this is 240. This is 248. I forget what this is. I've actually been down this road in real life. There's kind of an old beef farm right here. Some houses that go back. And this is actually an old farm that's a non-functional farm. It's actually a tree farm now. The guy turned his farm into a tree farm. And a lot of new housing developments. This is, will bring you down to the schools. Pretty decent sized soybean fields here. So a nice thing about making a map this big is you don't even have to, you can just like drive around for hours and really get nowhere. This is the biggest field in the game. Huge field. I actually tried to use course plan. I didn't calculate the boundaries, so gonna have to see what's going on there. I'm sure it's close to 250 acres. More housing. So we'll drive by the dealer and then we'll work our way back. There's another farm in the backside that's another potential farm I might make. So just placing these houses here. They're actually in the right location where the houses are in real life, but just need to finish adding detail to that. So this is your turning lane, pull in. So that was the Tri-County implement in real life. It's the John Deere dealer. They don't really have much in stock, but it's one of 3. I believe there's 2. There's one in Turtle Lake and one in Richmond. They're all owned. They're all part of the same thing. And here's the dairy. This is actually not actually there in real life. If you were to follow this road up further, you know, a couple miles, you'd run into Dresser, and there is actually a cheese manufacturer. They make cheese there, so that's kind of the equivalent of a dairy. But you can just see the size of this field. It's massive. Got to take care of some grass here on the side, but there's actually houses that are supposed to go in there as well. So this is the back end. This is the most eastern part of the map. On the Wisconsin side, you can see where we are, kind of humming along the edge. Train tracks come up here. So this train doesn't really haul much. It goes up to Dresser for trap rock. It really hauls trap rock mostly. So really isn't a whole lot of function to drive that. This is part of another farm here, kind of farm across the train tracks, and I believe it's a dairy farm. They have a lot of hay fields for hay production. So kind of getting the layout for that farm with some just random buildings, but mostly just doing the layout. This is another large cornfield. It's probably another 200-acre field at least. And then we'd be coming back onto County Road M here at the intersection. This farm here is going to be a grain farm. It has a couple bins for grain, so large cornfields here planted. Down there really isn't much. If I bring up the map, you can see where we are. There, you know, it goes back there a ways. you know, goes around a corner and then comes back. But there isn't anything back there except houses, really. So this is just a large cornfields. Basically, these two fields. I didn't look at the taxes, so I don't know if that farm owns both of them. But this is a golf course. Forget what it's called. It's like Osceola Links or something like that. It's an 18-hole course. Takes up a lot of this area. Like I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to replicate that if I ever do replicate it. It'd be nice to, but not really sure how I'm going to do that. I might make like some greens, and kind of paint in some fairways and stuff. Because it takes up pretty decent. So we're back on County Road M, and then this road on the left we're going to take down here, and this kind of brings us past. I mean, there's a housing development there, but it brings us back to the backside of the airport. There's a Osceola Regional Airport. They do. It's not a large airport. It's pretty small for the most part, but they do. I forget what the event is. It's like rigs and rods and wings or something like that. They do like car shows and airplane shows, and they do like tanks and stuff like that. Anyways, this road would bring you back to the hangars. I know a couple people that have planes and they have hangars there, so they keep their planes back there. And this is still owned by the city, I believe. And then I'm not really sure what the laws are, but typically you only see these as hay fields, these farms, or these fields that are next to the takeoff and landing. And then here is eventually where some kind of newer industrial, like plastics and graphics and some newer companies are. And then there's housing development back here, and then some random fields. So these are actually some pretty cool fields. Like if I get in, you can see kind of how flat the terrain is. It's really boring. I don't really like this area. In real life, I mean, for a farmer, I'm sure it's great. It's super flat. There isn't much going on. But in real life, there's a farm here, really run down. I don't think it's very functional. I think they might own the land and they just lease it to other farmers. But you can see here, these are just typically large hay fields. I'm not sure if they're allowed to plant anything other than hay for height issues, even though it's like, even if you plant corn, it gets 7 feet tall at most. Like, what's that gonna do for an airplane? Nothing. But whatever. So these roads were built in Blender, and off of me just kind of randomly placing individual road units. So I didn't have the opportunity to build, import the terrain into Blender and work off of it, because I imported it into Maya, and it was like 40 million polygons. So that's why you see all this rough terrain. I had to build the terrain up to the road and then smooth it out. But anyways, these are some larger fields. You can tell it's relatively flat in this area. Got a weird texture issue with the airport texture, but And then there's an old farm up here. I'm not sure it's very functional, but in real life, there's the co-op. Co-op is right here, as well as like J&S Construction and some lumber, as well as the Osceola Hospital. And then there's some grain, like a gravel pit, some soccer fields and stuff like that. So again, it's pretty flat terrain. There isn't much going on, but this is pretty much the one point where it's going to be a sell point for grain, where you can get fertilizer. Still a lot of work to do. There's I think there's like a veterinary clinic and some houses up here. And then there's a bunch of apartments and trailer. It's like a trailer park that's over this area. There's an old farm kind of buried in these trees, and this brings you to downtown Osceola. But there's a road here. It's called Ridge Road. And it just follows the ridge right on the edge of this, some fields back here. I actually like this road. I've never been in this road in real life. But there's a train station and water treatment plant that are going to go here. There's a pretty large barren field. Again, a lot of these fields are not even in production. I think they put them into some kind of wildlife preserve program that's pretty popular in our county. And then some houses that are eventually going to get more developed. But if you're just kind of driving, you can see that it changes in terrain, and it's a pretty scenic road in real life. During the fall, you'd be able to see through all these trees right along the river there. There's another large field. This is a large. If I bring up the map here, you can see where we are. We're kind of down in the southwest side. We're still in the Wisconsin section. We haven't crossed over to the Minnesota side yet. And then this is eventually going to be another farm. Kind of a impractical place to develop a farm that you want to place so close to the edge of the map. Anyways, that's all there is to that. Put it back on cruise control. So you can see on the other side the trees that have been placed over there on the Minnesota hillside. This is the St. Croix River. Separates Minnesota and Wisconsin. So I'm definitely looking forward to using the Seasons mod here and watching the trees change color as the seasons go by, lose their foliage. So you can see there's actually a park there. I forget what it's called, but there's kind of a scenic walk. You can like walk around and like canoe and stuff down there on the river. Plenty of parking. So this is a crazy intersection, really. It's like on a hill and it's got all kinds of crazy things going on, so definitely not the greatest fan. There's a gas station up here, and now we're in downtown Osceola. We're entering. In real life, there's like another gas station here. There's a Dairy Queen somewhere. I think it's right there. But that's the downtown. There's a bridge that's I need to build still. This is Osceola Road. And there's like a creek that runs. And this is a bridge. So now we're on our way heading into Minnesota. So if I show you guys this area, you can see the terrain a little bit. The river, you see how big the river is? This river is there's upstream there's a dam, so it's actually pretty well consistent and how deep it is, and it's, you know, it varies obviously. And then this is actually, I built this to reflect the actual, you know, welcome to Minnesota sign. So then there's a park here. I need to build a parking lot, but just some walking paths, and you can put canoes in and do what you want. And then there's a pretty large gradual climb as we come into Minnesota here. Very scenic. You know, very, very lifelike. Guy's got a nice house up there. If I can put the camera back, you can see where we're coming from. All kinds of trees. I was actually skeptical at first with how the trees were going to affect the frame rate, but definitely doesn't affect it at all. So now we're coming up to St. Croix Trail. It's it's a big road. It's a highway, I think. This is about as far as I got on the Minnesota side so far. You can see haven't placed any trees. All I have really are the fields and some grass painted in. On the map, you can see where we are. We're at the intersection of Osceola Road and St. Croix Trail. So we'll just putz around. I like the Minnesota side. It's a lot more scenic, a lot more going on with the terrain and so forth. Can't wait till I finish getting all the trees in and all the fields finished up on this side. You can see all the different fields just with the basic paint. And this, for those that were watching the live stream earlier, this is what I was working on, putting these fields in, painting in the crops, just getting the trees in. I really like the way the 17 is with the trees. They kind of blend in, they like come into focus, where like 15 and 13 they would just like disappear. But now the way they have the LOD texture part of it, they kind of blend in just gradually. So in real life, this is a grain operation, I believe. I just have some floating buildings right now, but down this road, this is what we were working on in the stream. Is getting these fields and these trees put in place, but you can see the changing elevation. Again, this is all from using the digital elevation maps and just doing due diligence to get your accurate terrain. So, coming up on the end of the map here, there's actually a house back here. Or there's going to be a house back here. But I definitely think this is like one of the cooler areas you could live, just looking down at the river. Way back in the middle of nowhere, no one can bother you. So ideal. And there's someone owns a house back here too. Middle of nowhere, no one can bother you except the guy that farms this area. So you can see on the map, these fields, they don't, well, maybe you can't see, but because I haven't updated the PDA, these fields look extremely tiny on the PDA, but when you're driving out here, these are decent, you know, probably 40 acre fields, 30-40 acre fields, so they're not small by any means. But this is really as far as I've gotten for the Minnesota side. But there's definitely roads on the back end. Get back to some fields back here. Forget what this road is called. It's all gravel though. Call them the back roads. So won't be able to do much until I can get some kind of trees up on this left side. And these fields haven't been finalized, so because I know there's some you can see how elevated the road is on the terrain. So I haven't really spent any time back here other than quickly painting in some trees and some fields and some grass. So kind of go over sections, you know, one layer, one focus on one thing at a time. These back roads will be fun to drive on as you're driving from fields where you're driving your grain, your tractors. This is a big forest area that I need to finalize. But I just like this Minnesota side a lot better than the Wisconsin side. It's more rustic, more wildlife, more just untamed. A lot more fields, a lot more going on. So there's a large gravel pit, I guess. Actually quite massive. So if you were to come down here, this is actually you'd get weighed, your trucks would get weighed and everything like that, because this is a large gravel pit, as you can see. Some small fields around. Anyways, might as well keep going down St. Croix Trail Road. The intersection here. It's a bit premature to be doing this, but I know some people in the last stream wanted to do like a tour. And since I have all the roads in here already, might as well. So these will all be crop fields. On the map, you can see where we're at. Down this road is just a house. There isn't much to that. This is another view of another pit at the quarry. This road goes all the way back, kind of on the ridge, kind of a bluff actually. There's some houses back there. Have a decent view of the river. And again, you can see another road here. For residential. Might as well just drive down here, give you a decent view of what the terrain's like. This is actually pretty cool little area in real life. Very scenic. Just some kind of overgrowth. Isn't much for agriculture. I've never been down this road in real life, so it's kind of fun to build it and then get a chance to drive around and see what it's like. But this is I know there's a couple houses back here, and they're just bluff houses really. They just look down at the river. So it's definitely going to be fun to explore these areas a little bit more. You can see the back end of this other road here. So if we were to take that road, it would screw it, let's do it. This kind of goes by two lakes or ponds, I guess you would call them. Technically, I think they're lakes, but I mean, you can't put a boat in it and drive around. They're just so small. But down that road it's just housing development, dead end road kind of thing. Down this road is actually like a beef, I would say it's a hobby farm at the end of this. And then this area in real life is kind of a grain farm. They have some grain bins set up here and some kind of like a rundown beef operation. But definitely, you can really see the terrain and how it's gonna look really good once I get all the trees and all the textures and power lines. And back there is a dairy farm as well. And then these are kind of, you can see that these are where supposedly the lakes are. Just tiny little ponds that I haven't finished yet. I think there's like a hobby farm back there too. Isn't much in terms of production, but this is going to be a lake when I finish. And now we're just hauling ass. I mean, to actually get down all of these roads and show you guys will take forever. I mean, I've already been recording for 40 minutes and we haven't gone down all the roads yet. This is a dirt road. Bring up the map. I believe it goes to a dead end. It goes down to a farm down at the end of that road. This area in real life, there's quite a few farms. You can see how much land is still available. It's I believe it's a dairy farm in this little triangle section. And then this area, I actually hit a height. In real life, this is about a couple, probably 30, 40 feet higher than it actually is. But in GE, I can't go any higher with the terrain. It's like a limitation, so it's kind of stupid. But there's just some farms back here. Terrain again, super flat. Was pretty disappointed that I couldn't keep going with my topography and my elevations, so I don't really know if there's a way around that. I mean, it's a small area of the map that, I'll probably never actually end up playing, but I mean, we just drove by it, but there's actually a fairly decent grain farm in this area, and so these fields are, if you're going to get into grain farming, this would be ideal. I actually have a pretty decent grain bin set up. Otherwise, back coming up here on the right and left is like a farm that's kind of split. I'm not sure if it's the same farm or if it's two farms, but it's kind of interesting. One's right there, and then the other one's right here. So it's kind of interesting that two farms are so close to one another. And then back here is just some housing developments that I'll eventually build some more small ponds or lakes, and you can see some terrain I need to flush up to the roads. It's a pretty cool area. Again, I've never been down this road in real life either, so more housing developments back there. Housing developments down this road. All Alaskan down this. So this brings us back to St. Croix Trail, and then I need to develop this area a little bit more. I believe there is some fields and some housing that go down to the river, but the only thing I've done here is roughen the terrain and elevation and the roads, but you can see the kind of terrain we're working with. This is another lake here. Forget what lake it's called, but apparently it's the land of 10,000 lakes, but they call all these small little ponds lakes. Wisconsin, we call those ponds. We don't call them lakes, but a lot of farmland around here, some smaller fields. Will definitely be fun to farm some of these smaller fields, just because the terrain is so crazy, and the views would be pretty decent. This is another quarry owned by the gravel back there, and then this is just fields, hay fields, I believe. I think this might be, I'm not sure if that's a farm, but this is also another pit owned by the quarry. Might be just a sand pit. This is really cool, this road back here. Kind of splits these two fields, and it's on the back end. There's actually a large dairy. You can see what the floating barns are. It's a fairly large dairy in real life, but I really like this area of the map. It's kind of a secluded fields back here, all crazy terrain and elevations, and then this road, there's actually a couple houses back here, and you can see what the terrain's like. It's pretty wild. But if we were to and these fields are all farm. If we were to like go the back way to this dairy farm up here, again, I'm not sure if this is a couple fields. It's just kind of painted in one, but this guy has his, where this, you can see the brown dirt, it's kind of the pastures. And he's got kind of a nasty pond there. And then he actually stores some hay bales along the road here. But it's actually a pretty cool area in real life when you drive by here. A lot of things are kind of hidden back there behind the farm. And that's definitely one farm I'm looking forward to building. It'll probably be the main dairy that I eventually end up playing, because it's got really everything. It's kind of in the middle of the map. It's got great views. It's a pretty large operation in real life. Access to all kinds of fields. Little gravel road. Some more fields here. So I started this probably, I know it was over a year ago. I think the last time I worked on it in 15 was last August, which is coming up. Yeah, we're just down that road, right? So we kind of get in closer here. People keep asking if it's going to be private or public. I have no idea. I have no idea if I'm ever even going to finish it. I would say there's probably a solid year's worth of work at minimum to get it to a point where it's even, I would even consider it being, well, even sharing it at that point, using it as a multiplayer map. So it's got a long ways to go. But it's kind of fun to get to the point where I can just drive around. And so these are some funky lines I was doing with texture and Blender. So now we're back on Osceola Road. We're heading back on, back towards Wisconsin. We'll drive back to the farm where I eventually plan to start playing. Obviously I wouldn't be going 100 miles an hour. It's a 55 mile an hour road. Actually, I think this is 35 mile an hour once we hit the single lane section. Again, this is where you can kind of park and go canoeing or floating or whatever you want. Pretty cool bridge. This is actually built. I built this to reflect the actual. This is the actual bridge. So it's very authentic. And then this is the actual bridge as well. I built this bridge for the trains. This is the actual design for the train as well. So this is downtown Osceola. There's nothing here right now. Another boat landing where you can put your boat in. This is pretty much commercial buildings like grocery store, restaurants, so on and so forth, and then it eventually blends into residential as you go up the hills and stuff. But schools again are on the right. I'm pretty happy with how the roads came out. When you use the array feature, and you extrude these roads out along a spline. They have natural curves, and down that road is River Road. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this or will watch this are familiar with a lot of these roads, because I know a lot of people that play this game are from around this area, so they'll recognize a lot of these roads. Anyways, I think it's going to be funny if I end up playing a farm and it's someone's actual farm in real life. So kind of waiting for that to happen, for someone to be like, hey, that's my farm. Anyways, some decent sized farm fields here. I know this actually isn't a field isn't in production in real life. It's kind of a barren field. Anyways, still have to develop some houses here. This brings us back on the map. We're kind of in the northeast part of Wisconsin here. It has some fairly decent fields. We got some hay fields, some road going back there, little dirt road. It's a dirt road that kind of goes back, and the guy stores his junk back there. He stores his junk along the road here. This is a cool farm. Can't wait to start finishing this up. I might change the grass so it's short grass. But he's got a decent layout with sheds, some old corn cribs. Just drive down this field. This is actually a cow pasture on our left. It's all fenced in for cows. And then this road, so obviously you drive back here with your tractors, and this allows you to get back to these fields back here. This is a small little hay field. And then it's interesting, this is blocked out. This would be a pasture, and then there's another kind of dirt road that comes back here to the other hay field, and then this kind of goes up the hill a little bit. But this would be fun to mow and rake. And then obviously if you're cutting down some trees, you have a massive forest of trees. This would be a cool little hay field. My next experiment is to see if these other paintable extra foliage layers will actually get destroyed by like a cultivator or plow. So anyways, that was a quick tour of the map. It's in all kinds of different stages. This is a little bit more developed than all our parts. Some parts aren't even developed at all. So hopefully you guys get a better idea of like how massive this map is, and it's a huge project. But a couple hours here or there, really plugging in some hours on the weekends. Girlfriend's over in India right now, so it kind of means it's free weekend for me to do whatever I want. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys follow my Facebook page, I post pictures there. I haven't been very active the last couple months for other reasons, but anytime I'm posting pictures on Facebook, that usually means I've been working, and can kind of follow the progress there. Anyways, this map tour has been brought to you by Johnson Motors, Chevrolet, High Country. Thanks for watching, guys.